Have you ever wondered whether the problems in the world today would exist if we had deeper connection to ourselves, others, and the environment and acted from that place?
Welcome to the Conscious Action Podcast with your hosts Brian Berneman and Kayla Greenville, who believe that connection is the key to taking conscious action as individuals and creating a better world.
We're here to raise awareness and inspire meaningful action by sharing stories, knowledge, and conversations with thought leaders and change makers.
From sustainability to well-being and everything related to conscious living, our mission is to empower you to be the change that you want to see in the world. Welcome to a new episode of the Conscious Action Podcast. I am honored to be for this episode talking with Travis O'Keefe. That I'm going to ask you, Travis, in a moment to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about you so that everybody that is listening can get a sense of who you are. But first of all, thank you so much for being here with me on this podcast episode. And I take it to you to be able to share with us, who are you?
Hey, kia ora, bro. My name is Travis O'Keefe. I am from a small village in New Zealand called Whangarā. Whangarā is on the East Cape above Gisborne in a remote fishing village, population of 300. So everyone there is either fishermen, farmers, or sheep shearing. And a little bit about my background is I'm an entrepreneur. And what an entrepreneur means to me is someone that solves problems and has to think outside the box because they don't generally have much resource. So they have to think about how to be efficient with existing resources to achieve whatever goals they might have. And I've been doing that for 30 years now in a wide range of businesses. It's been a fantastic journey. I love it.
Wonderful. And would you be able to share with everyone a little bit on, as you were saying, like where you're from? What was your upbringing like? And coming from, I mean, like, even me, I've been living now here in New Zealand for 5 years, and I'm slowly learning about the Maori culture and the Indigenous culture. Would you be able to share a little bit more of how that was through your childhood?
Yeah, sure. So I belong to a tribe in New Zealand. New Zealand, there's about 90 Māori tribes. People think Māori are homogenous, but it's not true. We're multiple tribes. I belong to a tribe called Ngāti Porou. Ngāti Porou is one of the largest tribes and is up the east coast in those rural areas in New Zealand. And the sub-tribe that I belong to is called Ngāti Konohi. So my Māori culture and growing up, I grew up in a rural area. So you don't have a lot of money because there's not a lot of work up there. So you have to grow your own, fruit, veg, and food, basically. And you do things differently there. There's no movies or anything like that. So you have to come up with your own sort of mischief to get up to. And yeah, that's kind of my background. My early childhood sort of area. I was brought up I was whānai'd out, what they call whānai'd, which means I was given to some of my other relatives to grow up with. And in our Māori culture, we have this thing called whāngai where it's almost like a village where you're brought up with a village. And my mum and dad moved to another area, and then I was brought up by my auntie. Another interesting characteristic around that is I had three mothers who were actually my real mother, my grandmother, and my auntie. And so I was brought up by three mothers. In the Māori culture, it's very community orientated. And, I grew up in poverty. I didn't know it at that time. That was not a word that I had in my mind. It was, we just didn't have anything. not much money. So that helped shape me, I think. And I think that the gifts that it gave me is I'm tenacious. So I am mentally strong. I am able to take hard knocks and get back up from them and keep going. It's been the biggest gift. I'm very resourceful thinking, because when you don't have much money and you need to achieve something, you need to think resourcefully about how to do that.
Yeah.
So those are some of the great gifts, and I think the most important gift is also giving me a loving and kind and caring side where I care about others, and that's fast forward into all the jobs that I do or businesses that I've created. They all do good in society in some way. So, I love doing that, helping others. Yeah,
beautiful. And it's interesting something that you just mentioned, that resilience. I come from in Argentina. I come from a society that it goes through these cycles of ups and downs and economical and societal crisis every few years. And one of the things with that, which of course has its many challenges, is the fact that I was able to, and I think most people over there are able to build that resilience to be able to actually navigate life in a way that a lot of other people can't and don't have that way of actually seeing life. And anytime that a major challenge comes into life, whether that is a personal one or whether that is an economic crisis, then suddenly there's like everything is over. It's like there's no way out of that. It hits them like a rock, and instead of thinking like, okay, this is what's happening, where can I turn? What are the and that's the resourcefulness, like being able to actually gather yourself and be like, okay, where now? And that's an awesome thing to have.
Yeah. Look, I can resonate with that. Yep. Yeah, good on you.
Yeah, nice. And would you be able to share with us? I'm curious, with this spirit that you had and spirit of understanding that resourcefulness and entrepreneurship, what was your first creation?
Oh yeah. Look, I didn't know that I was an entrepreneur. That's a fancy word someone told me many years later, and I was like, yeah. Actually, I resonate with that. I'm one of those things. But in the early days, I think I was about 18, and what I did is I started my first business. Basically, I had tickets, and I sat in the back of the classroom, and I sold tickets to the netball girls and the soccer girls and the rugby boys to a party. I had convinced my mate to lend us his big double garage, and we had a boom box of music going, and I convinced his older brother to go and buy us some kegs of beer, and then I'd throw these big parties with all these young kids, and I would make a little bit of money out of it, and I'd have a great time with them. So that was the first business back in school days. Yeah.
Wow.
So and that just evolved into, eventually that became an event management business. Over a number of years, parties got bigger and wilder, and and they evolved.
Wow. Yeah. So cool. It's interesting that, it's interesting what makes someone an entrepreneur. And what does that even mean? And it's like sometimes it's like it's this word that a lot of people want to have. Like, I'm an entrepreneur, and it's like, do you have a business, or what are you, and how does that define you as well?
Yeah, it's an interesting label, right? Like my cut on it, there's many different types of entrepreneurs, just as there are many different people. Um, but generally, there's some common characteristics about them, which they're problem solvers. Because you're just constantly coming up with problem after problem when you're building like a business, and so you have to be able to think about, how do I solve that? So that's a common characteristic, the ability to problem solve. Another common characteristic is resourcefulness. You don't have much money, you have to use different actions, activities, ways or processes to achieve the goal than other people that live in corporates or have more money. So, there's that resourcefulness. I think that's one element. That's the entrepreneurial thinking to me. But there's another important element over the other side. I reckon there's a couple of key things. Over the other side are skills and disciplines. So, you get the entrepreneurial thinking, and what I've seen is most Indigenous nations, people that I've lived with around the world, and I've stayed with quite a few of different nations, and I've noticed the characteristics, they've all got this entrepreneurial thinking, the resourcefulness, problem solving. I think it's a characteristic of poverty. And then over the other side, which they don't have, which is the skills and disciplines. And what I mean by that, skills, and when you're doing entrepreneurship, there are certain skills, ways that you do things, which are very, very efficient. So, for example, a skill about if you're starting a business, rather than setting a business up and spending all your money on setting it up and then going out there and trying to sell your widget, and then finding out that the market or people or customers don't want to buy your widget, and then you've lost all your money. That's one approach. But if you're learning entrepreneurial skills, what you do is you don't do that. You do what's called market validation, where you go and talk to your potential customers and you talk to them about your assumptions, your guesses that you have about what the product is, the price points of the product, and what problem it solves for the customers. And you ask them and confirm with them, would they purchase it? And so, if you look at those two approaches, skill-wise, one costs a lot of money, the other one's just phone calls talking to potential customers. So that's what I mean. That's just one small skill. And then the other point I was making is around disciplines. Disciplines is two forms of discipline. Discipline of thinking and discipline of action. Discipline of thinking is about being focused. So it's about saying no. Focus just means saying no. You've got to get used good at saying no. It's difficult because many of us are wired to please others. So to overcome that, you've got to overcome that natural programming that you've had that lives in your subconscious, and you've got to say no to things. So that's discipline of thinking. Then there's discipline of action. So discipline of action is when you have a plan, staying on track and just doing the next step and the next step and the next step without being distracted by the next opportunity or the next, I call them shiny rabbits. When you see a shiny rabbit bouncing in front of you, you tend to find entrepreneurs go, ooh, there's another rabbit, chase that one. And then they get bored of that rabbit and they go, ooh, there's another rabbit. And then they chase the next shiny rabbit. And you've got to have discipline action to not do that. And if you have those two things, in my view, it's how the serial entrepreneurs, the guys who repeatedly do it over and over, that's the characteristics that they have.
Yeah, beautiful insights into what that means from you, because yes, I think there's so many different types of entrepreneurs, but what you just described, it does feel like someone that is actually using the entire scope of what that means, and that's beautiful. Yeah. Is this going a little bit towards what you actually have created? Is this part of what you try to do with Te Whare Hukahuka? And as well, can you explain or share with everyone that is listening, how did that come to be, and what's your aim?
Of course, yeah. Look, so I'll give you back up some context in my history. And there's a context of my story, and it's this fabulous story where I thought I was Superman at one stage and very egotistical, to losing everything and my values redefining. So I'll talk about that first stage. The first stage is I had a dream that I wanted to own my own island. And so I was furiously pursuing that. I had built a number of different businesses. At the time, this is context, I had won many different awards, like entrepreneurship awards, innovation awards, research and development awards. I was covered in the media, and I had raised millions of dollars, and I was scaling a business internationally into 5 countries all at the same time. The Board of Governors were really supportive of that, and they wanted me to just scale it up. And then I was in Singapore at the time, and I can remember looking on the TV, and this was 13 years ago when the GFC hit, the global financial crisis. And I can remember seeing on TV, there were all these people crying in America. And I'm like, what the hell's going on in America? Like, fuck. And anyway, fucking, this recession, people were losing their homes. And I thought, oh, well, that's not going to hit fucking, here in New Zealand or in Asia where we're expanding. Lo and behold, shit, it does. And it wiped us out. And cut a long story short, I lost everything. I lost, unfortunately I had friends and family's money in there. And so like all those relationships and people blamed me for the recession and losing their money. And I felt they unfairly vilified me. Through to I lost everything of my own money, my house, and then my wife left, and I was this hero once before and very egotistical, and like life just gave me this whack, and I spiritually, physically, mentally, I was fucked. It was such a hard fucking time, very broken, and my identity had been really challenged. I left that whole scenario, going, who the fuck am I? I'm not this identity or this label that I once had, which was Trav, the superhero, entrepreneur, award-winning, blah, blah, blah. Like, who am I? Who am I? My wife's left, and like, who am I? Family man, and I've lost my businesses, and like, fucking, it's an interesting experience to go through and learn from, like, your identity of who you once thought you were, and to go on this mission. Fast forward from that experience, to cut a long story short, I had a number of epiphanies along that next journey, which took me down a new path and made me remember where I'd come from. And where it come from was from poverty. And I read this report called the Social Report that the government used to put out about the indicators of well-being in New Zealand society. And in these indicators of well-being, I noticed that Māori in Pacific Islanders were in the bottom of 80% of all indicators. And I was shocked after reading this report. And like I said, like, fuck, I'm Māori and I didn't even know this existed. I didn't even know it was that bad. Because I hadn't labeled it. I just knew that we didn't have money, but like I didn't label it as this context and have a deeper understanding of how bad it was. And, I just decided to do something about that. And so what I did is I went on this crazy journey, which is a massive story about how I lobbied politicians, and then I got myself on. I thought I could change government policy, so I got myself on policy advisory boards. I lobbied CEOs of ministries, and then none of that worked. And then I said, "Oh well, I'm going to change, philanthropy." So I did these keynotes and all the philanthropic conference about how you could reinvest to change society, and that didn't work. And then I moved over to going, okay, well, I'm going to try and improve the lives of charities and work with the boards about how they could do things differently, and that didn't work. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to go inside a charity and see whether I can bring my ideas and generate money for a charity so I can be more successful. And well, that didn't work. I made them a significant amount of money, but I clashed with the board and entrepreneur versus traditional thinkers. So then I left, and then I came to this opportunity, and this opportunity that's when I decided to set up with Shay White, my co-founder, Te Whare Hukahuka, Te Whare Hukahuka is the vision to improve the lives of 10 million Indigenous people. And how we do that is we work with the leaders of community organizations, and we work with them to strengthen the community organization. We do that by doing 4 things. We teach the leaders of the community organization to be good at leadership, governance, training. Then we help them to come up with a really great strategy of how they want to get from where they are today to their vision of success. Third thing is then we help them to teach them about entrepreneurship. And then the 4th thing is we work with them on commercial advisory. What that means is we look at their assets, A lot of these community organisations, Indigenous ones, have fishing, forestry, farming assets. We look at how they could make more money out of those assets so that they could reinvest that additional money back into their social programs. So we've been doing that for about 8 years now, and we've worked with. I think I've coached and trained, like maybe 1,000 Indigenous Māori leaders along that path. So that's a little bit about Te Whare Hukahuka. I guess couple of key points for those that are entrepreneurial minded is we realised that we couldn't it would be too hard to reach our vision by impacting one person. So we were strategic about it and said, let's work with the community organisations that serve 2,000 people. And if we could improve the community organisation, then the impact will be magnified with their people. That was our strategic approach about that. And that's how we came to Te Whare Hukahuka. I'll just add in that note, what does that mean? Te Whare Hukahuka. It means the house of innovation. Te Whare means the house. Hukahuka describes the froth. Hukahuka means the froth on a wave. And Māori have this legend, which goes Tangaroa, the god of the sea. He birthed all creativity, all new things from the froth. If you can imagine the bubble of a froth opening up and exploding, and then a new one and exploding, and there's this whole cycle of new, which is for Māori people, we didn't have written language. We had symbolism, so we looked into nature and we looked at things that happen in nature, and then that's how we interpreted and communicated with each other, by looking at that. And so the symbolism is of a bubble popping means innovation. So Te Whare Hukahuka is the house of innovation. It was gifted to us by our first iwi partner. For those that don't know, iwi means Māori tribe. Ngāti Pūkenga, who is in 4 different areas, Tauranga, Coromandel, and in the north of North Island. And they gifted us this name for helping them, improving the lives of their people. Yeah, so it's a little bit of background. A quick summary around that is, I had a readjustment in values through a very hard and experience, and along that pathway tried many other things to try and improve the society, New Zealand society. Eventually came to Te Whare Hukahuka that has the vision to improve the lives of 10 million Indigenous people, and I've been working on that for 8 years.
Wow, that's amazing. And there's so much to unpack from there.
Yeah, sorry, bro. It's a lot.
No. It's good. Like, the first thing is, like, I congratulate you for the amazing work. Like, and I know we've talked in the past as well, and I know Shay as well, and I know the impact that you guys are having in the community. So first of all, like, a big thank you for your role in that. And then,
Thank you, bro.
one of the biggest things let's start from some of the things that you mentioned there. One of the things is the understanding of well-being, and what does that mean in general, but also, and this is one of the things why this is one of the spaces that I work with, and that I do think that Indigenous people have had the answers. This is why I have studied so many different ancient traditions, because there's that connection of body, mind, soul, or whatever we want to call it, with each other, with the land, understanding, and I love actually, like, this in the Maori language, what I know at least a little bit. I love the understanding of being the steward of the land, and being able to understand also the importance of the whānau, and to understand the importance of the Maori, and that life force that goes in everything.
Yes,
and one of the things from this that I'm really interested is, and perhaps you know more of this than me, or for sure you know more of this than me. How did a lot of the indigenous people lost a little bit of that to be able to, I don't know if lost is the right word, but haven't been able to carry that on in a matter that now most indigenous people are, as you mentioned, in the 80% at the bottom of all of the well-being indications.
Yeah, okay, cool. That's a little bit of history. Okay, so where do I start with that? So what I'm hearing from you, first, let me just frame up something. And like, I'm just one Maori person, or half Maori person. So my view is, I can't speak for all of Te Ao Māori, the Maori world, just from my own experiences. And the other thing I'll frame up is well-being. You asked what was well-being, and one thing I've learned as a facilitator in working in Te Ao Māori, the Māori world, is everyone has a different definition of what well-being is. And it's not my place to say that their definition is wrong. And so, like, what we do is we say, we unpack with people and organizations, what does well-being mean for them? And then we support them and nurture them along that journey. And it is, everyone's got a different version, so it's quite interesting, what well-being is. But then along the journey, like, I think the other part of what you asked is, what happened? Why are Māori in the bottom 80%? And I didn't know this as well. Like, until you start, like, I didn't know this because we were educated through our education system about the English history, not New Zealand history. And there's a reason why that happens. Is so I was taught about the War of the Roses and English history. So I had no a context awareness until I made my own personal efforts to learn about New Zealand history, and I can see why. Like, when you actually take the time to learn what happened in our country in history, you can understand, well, why, fast forward several generations later, the impact and the consequences of colonization of a people. Because what colonization, the process of it, and don't get me wrong, I'm not here to like go, oh, several generations, it's your fault. I just believe you got to move on. I'm not one of those people that's stuck on that train of thought. But let's just understand, like, colonization and where it comes from. That's where you come in and you want and it was the English that came in here, and they wanted our resources, our natural resources, and they wanted our land, and so they set about a colonization process, and that's where you take away a indigenous population's language, and you take away an indigenous population's beliefs, religious beliefs or spiritual beliefs, and you take away an indigenous population's ability to generate or trade with each other. So not necessarily finance, but like how you trade with each other. And you take away the ability for Indigenous to practice their cultural practices. And it's a methodic way that they do that. And without going into depth, people can go and look and learn from themselves. Just go to YouTube University and Google New Zealand Wars. And you can learn some stuff about it by Professor James Bellamy, who was a professor of Auckland University, who sort of documented, what happened. And the consequences of that process to colonization, several generations later, it's about oppressing people. It's about manipulation, and it's about domination, and it's about it does not come from a place of love. It doesn't, or kindness, or all those good things. It comes from totally the opposite place. It is, and the consequence of that is generationally, over generations of time, when you suppress a people and you wipe out its history, then history is destined to repeat, because it's not communicating the history of the horrors. Because if we knew and understood what had gone on, as most normal human beings would go like, oh, that's fucked. Like, we don't want that to happen again, so let's do something about that. But how they do that is they wipe the history out and they teach you another history. And as it happened to me, I wasn't aware, like, in my mother's generation and my grandmother's generation, they used to get beaten for speaking our language. They were not at schools. They could not access schools if they spoke our language. They could not practice our cultures in schools. They had to practice English cultures. So this is, I'm only talking like, 1 or 2 generations ago. So this is what happened. And the consequence of that is that oppression is, it's very hard for people in those, when you're in that environment, to change or escape that environment. Because it's an environmental thing, like how you live, everything external of the individual, like it helps to keep you there. And then when you have an environment like that, when people are in that environment and they say things like, if you earn money and you're earning more than someone else, and through your hard efforts and the risks and things actions that you take, and then they pull you down. They pull you down by going, oh, they label you with other things. They undermine you with others, and so you can never escape. When everyone else around you, the environment, and other people start pulling you down all the time, and so that's what perpetuates it, is that rather than encouragement, going, yeah, come on, get up there, like I want you to succeed. You succeed, like you can help us all. You can pull us with you once you succeed, and so I think that's part of it. That's a big part of it, of why Māori and Pacific Islanders are in the bottom 80% of all those wellbeing indicators, is from those generational things. And I think if we want to put like right thumbtack, in my opinion, it is in the first 7 years of our lives, we are programmed. We are programmed, and how we do that, our brain is in the theta stage. Theta is like a hypnosis stage, where we are programmed by looking and learning from our peers, our parents, and our significant other families around us, by watching their behavior. And that goes into us. But sometimes, most of the time, it's in the subconscious, not the conscious. And it lives there, and it's reinforced there. It's programmed deep in there in the subconscious. And fast forward as we grow into adults, where we believe that we're making most of our decisions consciously, but it's just not true. Actually, there's plenty of research that shows that's not true. Majority of our decisions are automatic. That comes from the subconscious. There is a way to change it, by the way. Like if you want to look at Dr. Bruce Lipton's work, he talks about how you can change that. But the main point is to understand, like, okay, if we've got this programming happening in the first 7 years of our lives, then, and you're surrounded by this poverty mindset and these bad behaviors, which have gone on generations as a consequence of colonization, then the outcome today is naturally we've got these bad behaviors going on. And we're programmed, and we're not really being conscious of it. So those bad behaviors result in the statistics that we have. So that's my take on it. Yeah, where it sits.
And it's interesting, like this in the context that for what is happening in the US now, and I mean, this is now as well a big thing of like the Black Lives Matter movement, and I usually, like, when I went here in Auckland, like, to the protest, like, to support, and like, it was interesting seeing how it wasn't just Black Lives Matter. It was the Black Indigenous lives and people of color's lives matters, because in a sense, as you just mentioned, it's generations of oppression, colonization, or slavery, or whatever it was, and how society sees that, but also how those people and every person actually believes that as well, and how do we create an even field for that. And I think that this is why it's so important that what you guys are doing, that it's that empowering the individuals and the organizations and the iwis, the communities, to be able to lift themselves up and not to have a handout. It's like giving them those tools.
Yeah, hand up. Yeah, not hand out. For sure, bro. I'm down on that kaupapa, that way of thinking. Yeah.
And do you have anything, before we move on for a little bit, do you have anything to add in terms of what you see that is happening now with this movement?
Well, like if you talk to any Indigenous or people of dark skin, like I've experienced racism. Like, it's a fucking odd fucking thing, isn't it? It's like for the colour of someone's skin, like they're inferior. It's like, Anyway, so it's prevalent, and it's prevalent. I mean, unfortunately, a major problem in our society is media. If you look over history and you look at what media portrays, it portrays the negative things. Why? Because that's what we like to watch. That's the reality. We like to watch. They do it. So what happens is they find the 1% of Indigenous or black people that do fucking dumb shit, and they amplify that, and then suddenly that programs everyone's belief system of these stereotypes. Oh my God, you're black, so you're going to rob me or something like that. Fucking shit. I've got to lock the doors and shit. So they don't amplify the good in humans. The media system amplifies the negative consequence. So what happens is stereotypes exist. And I think what you're seeing over there is a combination of people who are, not putting up with that and protesting that that's not good enough. And, that's the outcome. Will it change things? Well, unfortunately, I believe, that, you've got to reprogram the subconscious. So how do you do that? Is, how do we reprogram everyone? It's in early childhood. It's in the first 7 years. And I think that's where we've got to go if you want to change this in society. And that's not going to get political votes. You can't see the outcome of any activity that you do in the first 7 years. That you see it years later. So most political systems, aren't going to invest in there because a politician wants political capital, i.e., votes, and that's too long term to see it. So this whole system that we have outputs what we have in society. So I guess now is a great time to rethink that and revision what it could be, and it's up to us. It really is. We choose. We vote. We vote that system, and if we want to change it, then vote something else in. And my personal view is the political system is dysfunctional. And if it were me, the way I would have it is I would vote for, and I think we should vote for policies. Policies is what different parties put forward about what they want to do in society, housing policies, education policies, so forth. And, I reckon we should vote for the best one that we believe is what's best. And every party should put up their policy and go, this is my policy around education. It doesn't matter what party you come from. If I think that's really good and you've got evidence that's worked in another country and it could, fit here, then I'm going to vote for that. But I like your education policy. This other party over here, I like your health policy. And I think we should vote like that. And then what happens is the team or the politicians that come in should be the best people to implement that policy. And I reckon that system is one way we can restructure this whole thing and get the best for our society. So, I think that needs to be changed. Will that be changed? Well, the problem is someone who's tried to change the government and tried to change the system by writing policies, by getting myself on policy advisory groups, like being inside the government, by lobbying ministers. Like I did to the extent of ministers will have they're going to have a sitting, and they have a sitting, then they come for a dinner for 1 hour, and then they go back and have another sitting where they're arguing. And I got myself in that dinner to do a presentation about changing New Zealand society, and pitching my ideas to politicians. It got shot down by different politicians, but anyway, it's another story. But so I've had the insight of what it requires to make that change. And one thing I learned, a very, very important lesson, is when you have an existing system and people that are inside that have vested interests that have been in that system for a very long time, 20 years, and that's their job, that's the way they provide for their family. Then if you're trying to change that, which could interrupt their lives, they're going to fight back. They're going to fight back to maintain the status quo.
Yeah.
And this was characterized by this one comment that I had from a official. And I'd been lobbied a minister at the time. I won't mention who it is. And she I love it. She was fucking one of the best politicians out and was there for the right reasons. And she had told her ministry to work with us in what we were doing. And then I met the official, and the official was like the fourth tier down. But he's the person that had the money to do programs. And we'd been instructed by the politician down. And he said to me this one thing, and it resonated with me. And he said, you know what? I've been here 20 years working in the government, and that politician's only been here 3 years, and soon they'll be out, and I'll still be here. Oh. And that stuck with me, and I was like, what the fuck? That's part of the problem. Is and that's why I come to that draw that rationale conclusion is probably part of the problem is the system is going to fight back. The system's going to maintain it because that's their livelihood. So I don't want it to change. So this is the things that I found really hard when I was trying to do good and change our structure. So that's some insight.
Yeah. Well, I do feel that now, and for the last few years, that a lot of things have come out from under the rugs, that there's more and more things that individuals and organizations are showing. And there are things that I do believe that, and I don't think that this is from one day to the next, but these things now are now in our face from everyone. It's not like some people knew about this, but then the rest we didn't know. It's like now this is out there, and I do think that there's the possibility, way more than in the last 100 years, of creating some change. But I actually loved what you said about changing policies, because this is always as someone that actually I do care about the work that government actually has, and the fact that they are individuals and they are part of the system, but in a sense they are public servants. They are working for us.
Yeah.
And as long as we remain uneducated and ignorant about what are the things that they are doing, how the system works, then we don't have a say on that. And this is something that in all of the elections, I actually I had back in Argentina and here in New Zealand, I've talked to in the election process, I talked to some of the politicians and I asked them, okay, tell me, what are your policies? And they couldn't tell me, like that. And I'm like, isn't that what you should know? Like, isn't that what you're doing? Yeah. And like, I want to vote for you, not because I like you. I want to vote for you because what you are planning on doing is what actually I value. So I do think that is a wonderful way of actually framing it. And I hope that we can move in that direction. But I do want to ask you, now with the last, and I actually don't know for how long have you been doing your new endeavor to be able to help from a more technological and with e-commerce. Can you share? Did that
sure? Yeah.
Was that born from what other people were wanting, or something from you?
It's a combination. So just for everyone that's listening, 6 years ago, what we came across a bit of research which said if you had a few dollars to invest, where would be the best investment to change society and improve society? And it came up with by growing the household income has a multiplier effect. It affects different things like health. If the income's improved in the household, health improves, justice improves, education improves, access to doctors improves, housing and you get warm housing and so forth. So we said, okay, well, how might we do that? At that time, my mentor had given me a book called The 4 Hour Workweek, written by a guy called Tim Ferriss. And I just went, what the fuck? I love this shit. I love the way he's thinking. Oh my God. And so I could see partly it's about, creating businesses online. And I was like, fuck, I joined the dots together, which was, hey, I could grow the household income and teach whānau families that were struggling to create their own online businesses. And that's the idea I had, and I just went for it. And so 6 years ago, I created a program teaching people how to create online businesses. Fast forward, 6 years later, many iterations. It was moderately successful. We were still learning, and it came across I said, okay, well, I'm not from e-commerce or this background, so I've got to learn. So what I did is I went and studied with 24 e-commerce gurus. I looked around New Zealand, tried looking for knowledge. I found a couple, but not too many. They were too expensive for me. So what I did is I looked around the world. I found these e-commerce gurus who were practitioners, not theorists. So they successfully implemented their methodology and created 7-figure, 8-figure businesses, multi-millions of dollars. And I said, well, I'm going to research, and I went and researched them. And then I noticed these patterns, like they had things in common. There were things that they were doing in their business plan that were common, these 24 gurus. There's things they were doing the same in their strategy, and there were things they were doing in the operational tactics. And I was like, wow, that's interesting. They're all doing these common things. And then I adjusted our program, our e-commerce program. Started talking to a big company called Shopify. For those that don't know, that's has 1 million shops on its platform. It's a global giant, multi-billion-dollar giant. I went and had a freak accident. Like the universe conspired for me to meet, a guy from Shopify. He came to our e-commerce program and saw all these Māori or Indigenous people really hungry for the knowledge. Many of them were solo mums trying to make a better life for them and their family. He resonated with that. He introduced us into a lady called Jace Mayer. Jace Mayer is the Indigenous lead in Shopify. And long story short, we pitched to Jace, hey, we've got this program. Our vision is to improve the lives of 10 million Indigenous people. And we want to know if you want to partner with us in doing that. And blow me away, they said yes. They said yes. They go like, wow, yeah, we love your vision and we want to help you take this international and improve the lives of 10 million Indigenous people. So there's this multi-billion-dollar company, really giving us the kickstart that we need and the credibility we need. And they gave us resource and money and people and to help us, do this. And so, we've got this e-commerce program and we're training Indigenous people. Majority of 80% will be solo mums because they're hungry. They want to make a difference. They're willing to put the effort in, and that's what's going to get rewards. And that's who I back, the person that wants to put the effort in, and who want to create a better life. And we're helping them to create these e-commerce businesses. Along that journey, in parallel, we took that knowledge and created our own e-commerce business. So we applied it ourselves. We made many mistakes and lost a significant amount of money, but that was okay. We generated over 7 figures from the e-commerce business, and we're thriving today. And then the other element that happens is COVID. COVID lands, and the world goes crazy, and e-commerce goes through the roof. like we just start running out of stock. Our sellers, we just start running out of stocks, and we're just like, what the fuck? Oh my god! And then our program explodes. Like we used to have like 17 people apply and come on the program, 17. COVID lands, and we grow by 800%, and now it's over 1,000%. So we just have hundreds of people thirsty for this knowledge and wanting the knowledge, and we're like, fuck, this is amazing. So what we did is we went out and raised some money and said, like, oh, how do we help as many people as we can? Let's go out and raise some money. So we went out and raised some money, pitched our ideas to a number of organisations, to Pune Kukiri, a Indigenous government public service, Shopify as well, give us some money. And our own company, we sacrificed our own profits, and we said, oh, let's put our own profits in. And we have this big pool, and what we're going to do is we're going to give away these scholarships. So we give away $412,000 worth of scholarships to Indigenous, people, so that they could pay for their program costs, so they could learn this knowledge and create businesses for themselves. I love it, and that's what we're doing now. Now it's scaling up, and we've had approaches from other Indigenous nations. We had Aborigines come to us going, can you work with 600 businesses there? And I'm like, I'd love to. I don't know how, but I'd love to. And we had Papua New Guineans and there's Samoans, and it's like, wow, it's just this amazing thing that the universe is conspiring to actualize. It's just great. I'm so happy.
Wow. Yeah. And I mean, and it's part of what you guys are doing with having that vision of improving the life of 10 million Indigenous people. Then such a cause is going to actually get the universe to conspire to bring all of that to you.
Yeah, the world needs more good, right? The world needs good people. It hasn't been without its ups and downs, though. It's not. I mean, I'm talking about a great story, but there's been some hardships along the way. But it wants to birth this. And the time is here. It's now. E-commerce is the area. If you are losing your job, if you feel like that's in danger and you're fearing of being redundant, but you are hungry, like, go to our website. Our website is TWH, Tango Whiskey Hotel.co.nz. Go to the top left-hand corner around digital programs. There's a drop-down menu. Click on the words Kahao, K-A-H-A-O, and then it'll take you to our page where we have our e-commerce program. Apply to the scholarships. We're looking for people now. You've still got time. It starts mid-August. So apply for a scholarship. There's $7,500 scholarship there for you, as long as you prove to us you're hungry. You got to prove to us you're hungry. You want it. You don't want to waste the scholarships. We will help you. We will help you. We'll give the best of what we got to teach you all our knowledge, which has worked. It works. You just got to put effort in.
Beautiful. And for sure, we'll share that in the comments of this episode so that people know about that.
Bro.
And just to start getting towards the end, and I sent you some of these questions. I don't know if you had the time to think about them. So I will ask you again, and whatever comes from the top of your head.
Yeah, cool.
What is one resource that you would recommend to others? And you have already talked about a lot of them. So,
well, I didn't have schooling didn't work for me. And I think the way that we are educating can be different. How I learned around all those experts, I started by going to YouTube University. And it's just a conditioning. It's the way we've been conditioned. Like, if you want to know anything, go to YouTube. Type it in, how to sew, how to change a wiper blade, how to start a business, how to do e-commerce. It's all there. There's people that just explain it. So that'd be the biggest resource is YouTube. Just start there, and whatever question you've got, just go there. I now teach my 3 daughters. Like, then they come to me about schooling. They want to know something about algebra or something crazy like that. I say, look, don't, you know what Dad's answer is? It's like, go and ask Mr. YouTube. Go and ask Mr. YouTube, and you'll find out. So that'll be the resource I suggest.
Cool, awesome. And if you had to give someone like one tip, what is your one go-to tip that you can share?
Ooh, what context? On a personal context, on a business context, on a
Let's do both, one on a personal context and one on business.
okay, on a personal context. Well, and I speak from my perspective. One of the biggest lessons that I've learned is to redefine making mistakes. Like this, many people punish themselves by self-talk when they make a mistake, and it's just to understand. Like what I did is I redefined that. Like I said, I made a mistake, and fuck, that hurt, and I had to dust my pants and get up and try and fix what I made a mistake on, and the big thing that you've got to do is redefine what a mistake means. It's just a pathway of learning, and to understand that, like, next time you want to do better. And I think that's a really important redefinition on a personal level, redefining what mistakes mean. So from a business side of things, I would say that the best thing you can do business-wise is find someone who's done it before. Whatever you want to do, learn from the people who have done it before. And I've had many mentors along my path, and I just rang them up and asked them for a cup of tea. Can I show them a beer, glass of wine, and just talk to them about what I want to do, and they will share with you things that you aren't aware of or you can't see, because they've been there and done it, and you're able to come up with ideas of how to overcome those before you get there. And so that would be my business tip.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing those. And this might be, and for me, this is an important one. What was your latest small act of kindness?
Latest small act of kindness. I think latest small I've done. Jeez, I've done many small acts of kindness. Everything from there's a lady, my friend's mum. She has dementia and she's forgetful or Alzheimer's. Act of kindness is sitting there with her and being patient and kind. And even though that she tells the story again, just to sit there and acknowledge her, listen and contribute back to her and have a conversation. I think the one big thing I reckon that we could all do, and it's easy for us to do, is just be kind. Just be kind to others. It's not hard. Like just be kind to other people.
Yes.
And I just think, if there's one message you leave, gift from me is like, just try and be kind. Make that first choice. Be kind. Don't react. Don't react and engage your emotions and then attack and be self-defensive. Like breathe and just be kind.
Yes, beautiful said. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Travis, for this conversation. I know that we could talk about so many other stuff inside of all of that, but wonderful to know a little bit more about you and what was the drive to actually get to where you are with all of those ups and downs. So yeah, thank you so much for taking the time to have this conversation, and hopefully we can get some more people to actually know about the work that you're doing, and for people that can actually have the time before August to go and check out the scholarships that you guys are giving away. Hopefully we can get some more people to take part of that, to learn and to have that empowerment.
Yeah, for sure, man. That'll be awesome. Yeah, thank you. I mean, one of the things that's more needed in this world is to tell the stories of people doing good, and like you've got to pat yourself on the back for doing that, because there's so much of media, they just tell the negative 1%, not all the people that are doing great. And I think there's us that are light workers that are doing good in this world, and our stories need to be amplified. So thank you for that.
Yes, thank you. And thank you to everyone that has been listening to this episode. If you have learned something, please leave a comment, and I would love for you to share this with others that you think that these messages might be important. So thank you everyone for listening, and I'll see you on the next episode. Bye.
Ka kite!
What did you like the most about this episode? Take a moment to think about what change you can make in your life today.
Share your conscious action on social media using #ConsciousAction and tagging @ConsciousActionNZ so we can celebrate your impact on the world and create a ripple effect.
One easy action we would love for you to take right now is to share, like, and subscribe to this podcast. This will help us get these messages out into the world and inspire more people to take conscious action in their own lives, contributing to the better world we hope for.